Hello.
Hello.
Well, welcome to Our Time.
It's lovely to have your company. Janice, I've been watering this plant that doesn't seem to be growing or dying. It seems to be unwell.
Well, that's good because we are talking with Kimberly Douglas is
about
on
the
the
plant?
Yeah, no, not about
We
the
should have
plant, but
Sophie
talking about
Thompson.
being unwell.
Oh.
Ted Egan's on the program as well.
Looking forward to talking to Ted again. And our friend Lavette Williams will be here with a very special segment. But right now, let's find out how to keep well.
Absolutely.
Hi, Pete.
You're watching Our Time. I'm Peter Sellen, and my guest next is Kimberly Douglas, who is a nutritionist. And boy, do you know your stuff.
I hope so. I'm about to be put on the spot, I think.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm great.
Now, men, do they or do they not know when things are wrong? Or are they reluctant to go somewhere when they think, this isn't quite right? Tell us about what we're doing wrong, Kimberly.
Well, it's really important. I've talked in other shows about men knowing their own bodies, but also knowing their numbers, because a lot of men are renowned for leaving things till the last minute, particularly in the area of medical. So in the years I've been in practice, I see so many men who have got warning signals, whether it been something to do with the prostate, something to do with the heart, something to do with pain in the body, and they've ignored it, and thought, you know, I don't actually know what it is, and so it's that fear. And if they don't deal with it, it then often becomes a really, really big issue. So it's really important that men are actually a little bit aware of what's happening with their bodies, which is why doing shows like this, it just makes people question, am I okay? And if I've got reoccurring issues and perhaps issues that are changing from month to month or year to year, I think I should actually do something about it.
So, you know what's normal for you, obviously, and then you think, oh, well, that twinge might be something. Like I had a twinge, I thought it was a nerve thing in my back. In my case, turned out a disc had come out of its place or something, and it turned out to be something quite major.
Well, and sometimes it's major and sometimes it's something really simple. And if we look at things like the prostate, okay, blokes generally really stress about it. I think because of movies and the whole rubber glove thing, it's not like that. So now for men, it can actually save your life. So I talk about men knowing your numbers, know what your blood pressure usually is, know what your cholesterol usually is, and know what your PSA reading is. So this is a reading about how the prostate is operating, and you get a number, and it'll be around a 2 or a 3. But every man is different, and so we don't actually really mind what that first number is. We want to know in a year's time, when you have your once a year checkup, if all you do is go once a year and have standards, if that number's moved, we know that there's a potential issue. Now, it doesn't mean it's a tumour, but it may mean that there's an enlargement, that there's an infection. And so I'll have people come in and there'll be a 2, and the following year a 2.3, and a following year a 1.9. Then all of a sudden we'll have a 7, and we'll say, okay, it's still not at a tumour, then there's something we can do about it. And so what it means is you get your power back. Instead of waiting and ignoring it until you have a prostate tumour, the doctor can send you off very quickly, and it might even just be a course of antibiotics, problem solved. But it's the same thing with blood pressure. Know what it is. With your cholesterol, some people have hereditary cholesterol, and so your numbers might be higher than what the general reference range is. But if you are that all the time and all your family are all the same, then it's okay to stay at that level.
You often go into pharmacy and there's a body mass index chart there, and I'm sort of X height, and for my weight I should be whatever. There might be a skeleton.
Sure.
And is that something that people need to be concerned with? Body, is that a really crucial indicator of your well-being?
They're looking at changing it because, you know, a bit like the healthy diet pyramid, you know, it used to come out as this normal triangle. Well, now it's wrong and it's coming out different. So, no, it's not necessarily, you've got to take a lot of things into consideration. Now, it's a marker. And so if I had someone who was on the high end of the body mass index, they also had blood pressure, they also had cholesterol, I call this the toxic waste dump out the front, you know, carrying 5 or 10 kilo. Do you know for every kilo that you have on, it's an extra kilometre your heart has to pump a day. So you think of people who just lose 5 kilo or lose 8 kilo, that's an extra 5 to 8 kilometres off your heart a day. So what do you think that does for your cholesterol level? What do you think it does for blood pressure? What do you think it does for things like sleep app? There's a lot of people who have sleep apnea. That means they have problems stopping and starting breathing during the night. They're on these expensive machines, and that's fine. But it's amazing amazing how many are carrying 20 kilo, 30 kilo out the front. And part of the problem with that is that's like a small kindergarten child laying across your diaphragm all night. No wonder your diaphragm's having trouble and your breathing's difficult.
I was going to ask you, a lot of people are afflicted with chronic snoring, for example. Is that related to your weight, or is it just the physiology in your throat, or how does that?
It can absolutely be related to weight. So I rarely see a man who's slim or is too skinny who has a snoring problem. And so, you know, usually the first goal is look what's out here and get the weight off from around the throat as well. It can make a dramatic difference. Plus, at the same time, that's right, your wife doesn't sleep on the couch.
Or you do.
That's
Or
right.
his husband. Age, is it an age-related thing? I mean, are younger men more reluctant to go to find out what might be going wrong than older men? How does that work?
Well, interesting. I've been in practice over 20 years now, and the younger ones are getting better at going to the doctor. I think they're with the age of the internet, with Facebook awareness, and they're also up with some of the new tests. And so there's a lot more people who are eating organic, knowing their numbers, you know, choosing better lifestyles. It's actually the 50 to 70-year-old age group we still struggle with the most because they're just caught up in the, you know, as I said, the old rubber glove kind of scenario, and so they just put it off.
Well, sometimes it can be a bit invasive, let's face it, and that's probably what they're worried about.
True. And I think that's part of demystifying this is if you know there's some very simple, you can leave your clothes on, you can just lose some blood, and that's going to give us so many markers before you then have to go down another pathway. That's right.
No, recently, this is still current, I believe, I saw that you don't need to be too concerned about having skinny milk and things like that, diet, this, that and the other. Full cream milk, something, I don't know if you've seen those surveys.
Sure. Well, look, the
We're all worried
CSIRO...
about having that, yeah.
That's right. Well, CSIRO came out in the last fortnight saying now that they have proven that eating high protein, high fat and lower GI or lower carb actually helps control blood sugar levels, helps you lose weight, helps get you off a lot of diabetic medication, metformin, diformin, insulin. And so, you know, this is something we've been doing for years. People know that the high protein, low carb regimes work. We've now just got the evidence. So the skinny milk gone, go the full fat milk, the full fat yogurts. Fat has been a real fallacy and people have got so phobic about it. But if you eat higher protein and higher fat, you won't put weight on. You will lose weight.
See, this would amaze anybody listening to us because over the years, people have drummed into you, don't eat that, coffee's bad for your eggs, and this, that and the other. And
Correct.
full fat, anything, was anathema. Just don't do it. But
That's right. And now, as I said, the healthy diet pyramid, which was the 5 serves of breads and cereals and eat 1 serve of protein, has now been flipped completely upside down. The interesting thing is if you eat the high protein and the high fat, and you hike up the carbs, you know, maybe at the end of the day you think, I'm just going to eat all this chocolate or I'm going to have a piece of toast. That messes everything up, then you absorb everything and you will put the weight on. So it's keeping the carbs low and eating those better protein foods with the good fats.
So you're still able to enjoy the odd bit of chocolate, not a whole bar.
Absolutely. That's right.
And your favourite ice cream.
That's right.
But in moderation.
In moderation,
so,
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But a lot of people, I'd say, they might feel a bit of a twinge and then they will not go, the men specifically. You're advising that to rush off immediately? Or?
No, let's not fill all our major hospitals with people with a few twinges. That's right. So I always say give it a set amount of time. You know, if you have a headache or a migraine and it is unusual, then I have no problem with Panadol and have a rest, have a sleep, make sure you're hydrated. But if you get the same symptom repeating itself and you give yourself, I'm just going to watch it for the next 2 weeks, and if you're not a headache person and you've then had 5 or 6 headaches, go and get a checkup, a simple checkup with the doctor. They may flag something. Simple blood test may show it's a virus. Did you know you had a little infection? It could be easily fixed. But leaving something like a chest pain, like an ongoing indigestion, that your headaches, your migraines, you know, even things like the waterworks. If you usually are up once a night and suddenly you're up 5, 6 times a night, don't go the next day.
No.
I'm just going to sit and watch it for a few days, but after a week or 2, I'm a bit concerned.
What would that be a sign of?
Okay, so that could be anything from a small infection. It could be that you're not hydrating properly or you're drinking water at the wrong time of the day, enlarged prostate.
I was going to say, people drink gallons of water. I know people don't go to the house without like 2 litres of water.
Sure.
But if too much water is not good for you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't go over 2.5 to 3, but you've got to know your own body. If you're an elite athlete, if you're doing running, if you're doing training, if you're going to the gym, you absolutely need to be over that 2 litres a day. So yeah, on average 8 glasses, and I've got a handy hint with that because most people don't hit that mark at all.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so you've got to have 4 glasses by lunchtime and 4 glasses by tea time.
This is water or tea
Straight
or
water.
just straight water?
Tea and coffee don't count because
Okay.
they dehydrate you. So what most people do is they get to 6 o'clock at night and think, I've had 2 glasses of water today. And so my rule is if at 6 o'clock at night you are that short, there's no way you're going to catch up and you'll be up all night. So what you need to do is actually by lunchtime go, how many have I had? I've only had 2, so you scull 2, so you've caught yourself up for your 4, and you do the same thing by tea time. I've only had 1 this afternoon, you get 3 in, you've hit your mark for the day.
I've learned so much.
There you
Kimberly,
go.
it's been
Awesome.
fabulous talking
Terrific.
with you. Thank you. Kimberly Douglas on Our Time.
Well, thanks very much for that. All very well for people, but what about this poor
No,
plant?
don't worry about the plant. It's fine. The plant will survive. And so,
Oh, I'm looking forward to Ted Egan, who's coming up next on Our Time after this. And welcome back to Our Time. Janice, you remember a short time ago we had the wonderful Ted Egan on the program.
We did.
And as we expected, he would be full of life and full of stories and full of new songs. So we asked him back to talk some more. Hello, Ted.
Hello, Malcolm. Hello, Janice.
Great to have
be
you
back with
again.
you.
And thank you for coming back.
You remember last time we were together, and I said I could write a song about you, Malcolm and Janice, our rippers. And it reminded me of the song that I had learnt first in 1956, Frankie and Johnny, the old Frankie
Yes,
and
and
Johnny will love us, yeah. And a fella
I
sang...
think we cleaned it up with Sweetheart.
a fella sang it in New Guinea Pidgin, and I thought I must get the words. And he left the next day, and I lost him. And for 50 years, not every hour of every day, but I was constantly, where's Don Gaffney? And they said, oh, he died, you know. And then someone said, no, he's in England. He still lives in Toowoomba, but he's in England. So I sent him an email, and he said, Ted, I remember you, mate. He said, I'm told you want the words of Frankie, nah, Johnny. So do you want to hear it?
yes, please.
And you need to know New Guinea Pidgin is quite expressive, but you need to know buai is betel nut. New Guinea people chew betel nut. So buai is betel nut, yep. Guria is volcano. The word guria is volcano. And here we go. Frankie, now Johnny, stop one time. And me talk me like him, you. All they savvy to palace stop good, all the promise long married through. Johnny man belong him. And me talk straight along him. Now, Frankie go down a long trade store, kiss him some palabuai. Store boy and me talk along Frankie. Johnny grease him, Nelly Bly, Johnny man belong him. And yet he gammon him. Pop along Frankie, and me policeman. Frankie, cause he must get along him. Frankie go back along trade store. Ting long pennies him, only hurry up more. And me go back along store. Where? Johnny and Nelly, only dance him twist, only goria more. Triple a time, Frankie shoot him, Johnny slip him down long floor, Mary shoot him. Who's at the gammon him? And this is the verse I like best of all. Oh man, he got ding long Mary, at him now dispel a law. That's all one pull Mary one time, you no can kiss him, oh Mary shoot him. Who's at the gammon him? Oh Mary shoot him. Who's at the gammon him? There you go.
Oh, that's lovely.
Isn't that brilliant?
Fantastic.
And that is, do you know, I've got a feeling I saw you do that somewhere before.
No, not that one.
No?
No.
But
That's the fourth time I've sung it in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How brilliant that you remembered it all.
Absolutely.
Yes. But we were talking before about the Australian culture that we're really losing, and the guys that you recently were working with here in the Fringe, me and my mates, that group.
Yeah.
The thing I love about them is that every other country has a culture. Now, we have a very short-lived culture, obviously, and you obviously know a lot more about the Aboriginal culture as well.
Yeah.
Is there a way of sort of marrying that into today's culture? Because as Australians, we are all Australian. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And that is our history as a nation.
But also our children, I think, are growing up just not realising that we have this culture, that
Very
it's,
much
it's
so.
not
Never heard the
available.
song.
No.
Never
no.
heard Road to Gundagai. They say what?
Oh,
What's
Yeah,
that
well,
all
it gets back to what we were talking about last time I was here, that I wish people could have had the experiences I had where I was the learner and the Aboriginals were the teachers. They're out there with this great body of knowledge and they're very happy to teach we other Australians, and we just need to get connected to them and be prepared to learn from them because they do have this very good track record. They looked after this continent for all those thousands of years.
True.
Yeah.
So if you were advising the Prime Minister on how to handle this, what would your advice be?
My advice would be to go back to the land rights struggles of the 60s and remember that they were all about recognition that Aboriginals were here in 1787, and then along came the other people. And by and large, they've happily accepted the arrival of the others. And we now recognise that they do have land rights in Australia. And these are very clearly defined in most of the tribal regions. And if I was the Prime Minister, I'd say, look, all of you people from those regions who are now living as fringe dwellers on the edge of town, go back to your country, we'll come with you and we'll help you to re-establish yourselves on very respectable terms in your own country, on your terms. And
Is that possible, considering, though, that a lot of the land is desert?
But it's desert in some people's terms. You know, you take, say, the Wildberry people in Central Australia. That's desert, their country's desert, but it's full of. You can run cattle there. You can grow horticultural product there.
If you know what to do.
Tourism, people want to see wide open spaces and desert.
Yeah.
Tourism on their terms, where they can still speak their language, they can still dance the old songs, they can sit down like this and
Tell their stories.
Tell the stories.
Yes.
And kids especially love it.
Yes.
And I've been in the tourist game for many, many years, and the big thing that overseas people say to me is, how do we see Aboriginal life on a proper basis? And sadly, in a lot of places, they see it on a sad basis.
Yes.
But it's there, if only, and it will need government assistance and encouragement for a long while. But they're wasting millions of dollars already on doing things that won't work.
Is it because we don't understand the culture as white people? We don't understand the culture.
Well, we don't
enough.
We don't try.
We're trying to fit them into our culture rather than understanding theirs.
There's a little blind spot in the Australian psyche that really doesn't want to know all that much, because if you start digging too deep, you'll know that our system dispossessed their system.
Yes, yes.
And they're happy to acknowledge this, most of them, at this stage of the game, and to reunite and go forward with them recognised as the first Australians, and the rest of us are welcome Australians. So and we're a pretty fortunate nation, and we could resolve all of these issues if we just need a courageous Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in your fascinating life, are there highlights? Can you pull a couple of things out that really stick in your mind as, this made me?
Probably the cleverest thing I did in my life was to be one of the founders of St Mary's Football Club in Darwin, which is quite famous, and we started it to give Tiwi Aboriginal people the opportunity to play football in the Darwin competition. And we did it, to start a football team. We were immediately good.
Yeah.
And they've been going. I was the first captain, took them to their first premiership, and they've won 35 premierships, I think, in 65 years of competition. So they're an immense football force, but it was founded on solid family lines to fit in with the Aboriginal kinship stuff. And so we've produced people like Michael Long, Cyril Rioli, Maurice Rioli, David Cantilla in South Australia, and hundreds of players from St Mary's have now played AFL. But the crucial thing is that you go to a St Mary's social in Darwin, and if some young lout is misbehaving, an old Aboriginal woman will go and say, "We don't do that sort of thing here. Just smarten yourself up, son."
Yeah. Wow.
And, the authority comes from the family structure that we've created.
Yeah.
So that's out of that came my ability to come to terms with Aboriginal language. I'm not as good as people say I am, but I'm not bad. And
there are so many though. Is there a sameness at all, or
no? Well,
they're completely
there were
separate?
originally 300 languages.
Yes.
With not a common word. Or there might be the odd word like kangaroo or water that the next door neighbours would know, but the Tiwi language, which I can speak a bit, is not a common word with the Yolngamutta that I can speak a bit.
Do you feel you've been able to document this sort of thing enough?
The thing that needs to be done more than anything is to write it down, have it studied, have it acknowledged, have it researched, and have develop the national pride. But we did recently sat down with a lovely group of Aboriginal kids who mixed with a group of Sydney kids, and the Aboriginal kids taught them to sing Advance Australia Fair in Lurja. And the Sydney kids, they said, "I can speak Australian.
Yes.
I can speak."
Brilliant.
And it was as lovely as that.
Yeah.
Just really, really quickly, what are you the most proud of in your life?
The fact that I've inherited pretty good genes. I'm 84 now, and I feel pretty good. I won't live forever, but if I can live another 6 or 7 years and get these, it's that I've been surrounded by good people. I've been lucky enough, got a wonderful wife and a family that all talk to me, and I've got grandkids and great-grandkids and friends galore, and it's all around music and history and love of Australia. And I'm not into jingoism, but I'm very glad I'm born in Australia.
Fantastic. Yeah. Just great to meet such a true Australian, don't you think, Janice?
Yes, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Absolute
Thank you so much.
Am I coming back again one of these days?
Yes, I'd love to have you back.
No, when you're musical.
When I get the song done.
Can I?
When you get the
my-
musical
Malcolm and
done.
Janice Blues.
No, we'd like to be in the musical.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Any tap dancing, we're good at that.
Yeah. Wow.
Ted, thanks once again. It's
Thank you,
just been
Malcolm.
an
Thank you,
absolute
Janice.
pleasure to
Lovely.
meet you. And we'll be back with more OurTime in just a tick. Janice, it's great to have our roving reporter with us.
Lavette, absolutely. Gorgeous
And
girl.
this episode, she's been out and about, and some very interesting information she has for us.
What we really do is increase the well-being of the women. Women often come here when they're grieving, when they're just looking for a community to connect with. They come from a different country, they're looking for job skills, they have experienced domestic violence, but basically they're at rock bottom. Though there's a small minority who come just to connect or to give something back to the community. At the end of the day, when they live with their cup filled.
40 years on, and the Women's Community Centre remains a place to go to outside of home for many South Australian women from all walks of life. Claire McLean is the manager at the Women's Community Centre. She found connectedness through the centre.
It's such a good sense of self-value and self-worth for me. I actually came here 12 and a half years ago, almost 13 years ago, when I first set foot here, because I had a young child back then, my oldest son, and I was feeling isolated myself. I felt the need to connect with the community.
There are various programs run at the centre for women, from cooking traditional home-style meals, gardening classes, art and craft activities, and more. Some of the items made in those classes are later sold in the centre's op shop. The women enjoy coming to the centre not just for a safe place outside of home. Instead, they gather together for the friendship, explore new cultures, and give back to the community.
Giving back to the community is really good. Socialising and sharing my culture with other people is really good. You know, we learn different types of cooking and tasting and sharing and getting to know each other. The centre is the best thing for all of us. Coming here, losing my mum has given me a chance to come here and deal with my loss.
The Women's Centre lost their government funding last year due to budget cuts. This op shop supports the activities run here at the centre and through fundraiser programs as well.
So we've had to go into a volunteer-based organisation, pretty much fully volunteer-based organisation, but even with that it hasn't been enough to run the centre.
Despite the financial hardship the centre currently faces, the women continue to show true community spirit and work together to keep the friendship and the Women's Centre a safe place to call home.
I found it a safe place to come, that I didn't have a lot of pressure and expectations on me, but I could still contribute and do something useful and meet some lovely people.
The centre has really helped a lot of us in many ways, and I think giving back to the community is really good, you know.
It's also the diversity of
courses.
It's so many different things that people can keep coming back to, and it's also the camaraderie of the centre, which is really wonderful too.
Lovette Williams reporting for OurTime.
There we go.
Thanks to Lovette. And look, the real person's here.
She is here. Well done, Lovette.
Thank you for those reports.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great having you on the program with us.
It is.
Roving reporting.
Yeah, and getting out and finding out what's really happening.
Yeah, it's fun being out there.
How are people reacting to you?
Oh, very well. Very welcoming.
Are you hearing back after a segment's gone to air?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, so you can connect with us. Why don't you join us on Facebook? You can find out about where Lovette's next segment will be and find out what's on the show next time and just what's happening in our world that hopefully is part of your world.
Yes, please.
So until next time we see you.
Take care and join us then.
And keep yourself nice until then.
Bye for now.
Waving goodbye. Bye. Bye.